I am your guide to the deep memory of global capital. We step back into the grand tapestry of financial history. Today we will dive into the tulip collapse of 1637, when a flower cost more than a castle. Let me begin by setting the stage. The year is 1634. Amsterdam is the undisputed center of global capital. The Dutch East India Company has flooded the Republic with unimaginable wealth. But wealth in a closed system creates a peculiar psychological disease, the desperate need to signal status. Enter the tulip. Originally imported from the Ottoman Empire, it was unlike any flower Europe had ever seen. Its colors were intense, saturated, almost cybernetic. But the most coveted bulbs were those afflicted by a specific mosaic virus, a beautiful flaw that caused the petals to burst into intricate, unpredictable streaks of crimson, white, and purple. To own a Semper Augustus bulb was to declare yourself an emperor of trade. It wasn't just a flower. It was a localized, living Veblen good. And when supply cannot possibly meet a sudden explosion of vanity, price ceases to be a reflection of reality. Initially, the tulip trade was seasonal. Bulbs could only be dug up and moved during the summer. But the hunger for profit couldn't bide its time in the dirt. By late 1636, the Dutch invented a mechanism that would change finance forever. They began buying and selling notarized contracts promising to deliver bulbs the following summer. They created early futures contracts. The Dutch called it wind handle, the trade of the wind. You weren't paying for a flower, you were betting on the future price of a ghost still sleeping in the frozen earth. Look at the data. Leverage entered the taverns. People signed away their land, their cattle, and their life savings just for a slip of paper holding the rights to a single bulb. At its absolute peak in January 1637, a single viceroy bulb contract was valued at enough capital to feed, clothe, and house an entire Dutch family for half a lifetime. The problem with an asset class built entirely on the expectation of selling to a greater fool is that eventually you run out of fools. It happened without warning. A routine bulb auction in Haarlem. The auctioneer called a price. Silence. He lowered the ask. Still, nothing. A microscopic tremor of doubt rippled across the room. If he can't sell, why am I holding these contracts? The realization was total. The illusion dissolved in a matter of days. Panic flooded the canals. Contract prices plummeted by over 90% overnight. The wealth wasn't transferred, it simply vanished, because the value had never existed anywhere outside the collective delusion of the crowd. The aftermath was not a total economic collapse. The Dutch courts simply refused to enforce the contracts, treating them as illegal gambling debts. The true casualty was trust. The pristine reputation of the merchant class was stained by the realization of how easily their sophisticated minds were compromised by raw greed. My students often look back at 1637 and laugh. They think themselves too evolved to trade a house for a flower. But the financial mechanism changes, while the animal remains the same. Whether it is a streaked bulb in a Dutch tavern, a digital coin on a decentralized ledger, or a highly leveraged derivative in a New York boardroom. When the chart becomes a vertical line, the butcher is always preparing his calendar. Here's today's summary. Class dismissed.
Thank you, Professor Ndovu. The tulip mania teaches us that liquidity is an illusion when the underlying asset lacks structural utility.